Stand up, now. You're obstructing boarding. Put the phone down and move, now.
Tiden Sijer Arfin, AMJFK, first class aisle stalled. A gate memo tags his seat, special case. A white passenger drops into 2A. The black CEO doesn't argue. He glances at the PA speaker, lifts his phone, log everything. One call, ops, legal, procurement, join, boarding holds. Intercom chimes again quieter. We'll show you the receipts. Seat assignment history, gate notes, PA transcript, CCTV timestamps. In 8 minutes, policy flips on system and a $120M airline budget goes cold. Stay with me. No shouting, no threats. Only standards, proof, and the moment quiet power freezes the room. 7:42 a.m. at JFK. The jetway is attached, the cabin lights are bright, and first class should be settling. Instead, the aisle is frozen. A laminated seat tag hangs off the headrest like an afterthought. Special case. A gate note that should never have been on display. Row 2 watches it like a traffic flare. The camera of the story is your eye. Pan left to the window where the city is still blue with morning. Pan right to 2A where a white passenger lowers himself into the seat with the quick confidence of someone waved through. Behind him, a couple pretends not to stare. In the galley, the service cart clicks and then stops as if the sound itself knows to keep quiet. The black CEO stands in the aisle with a boarding pass that says what the system already knows. The agent at the door holds out a palm as if that palm is policy. Her voice is clipped by the intercom speaker above the row. Pre-boarding is complete. Premium seating. Please clear the aisle. The words are neutral in tone and loaded in outcome. They do not ask. They arrange the picture. He does not argue. He studies the room like a safety audit. Air vents humming. A child kicking a footrest. The tiny red light on a phone that just started recording. He lowers into 2B without protest. Every movement is precise. Jacket smooth, phone unlocked. Notes app already open to today's date. He looks once at the seat tag. Special case. He looks once at the PA speaker. Then he makes the only move that matters. Call placed. Not a plea, a process. Operations first, legal added. Procurement looped. His first sentence is the same sentence he uses in boardrooms and site visits. Log everything. No spike in volume, no sharp breath, just the tone of someone who has done this before. On the other end, the line knows the name and the program. The budget number is not a rumor. 120 million allocated across routes, kitchens, service partners, and staff training. The call routes to the person who can touch that number. The person who understands that hospitality is not the smile. Hospitality is the standard. The cabin keeps moving on its surface. A flight attendant leans in at shoulder height and points toward the aisle as if proximity can undo a record. Passengers shift and whisper. A man in 3C mouths that he is filming. Another turns the brightness down to keep the lens low. The intercom chime hits again and seems softer now, not because the volume changed, but because attention has. Operations opens the live dashboard. Gate scan history appears with timestamps. Seat assignment shows the reassignment chain. The PA log captures each announcement with time down to the second. Legal requests the CCTV pull from the jetway camera and the podium cam. Procurement holds online, waiting for the word they know is coming. Boarding pause. That is how the crew hears it. To the audience, it feels like a heartbeat that forgot how to finish a beat. The agent at the door tries a different script. Sir, we can find you a seat in the main cabin for an on-time departure. The sentence lands and just sits there. He looks at his screen and reads back the facts in plain language. No adjectives. Seat 2A was confirmed at 6:19. A manual override occurred at 7:36. A note marked special case was printed and displayed. Cross-check with camera angles 1 and 2. The quiet spreads. It moves from the phone into the aisle and then into the rest of the plane. A witness in 1D stops pretending to read. The man in 3C lifts his chin as if to say, we are all seeing this. Up front, the cockpit door stays shut, but someone inside is listening. The cart in the galley does not move. Operations asks for a directive. He gives 3. Freeze discretionary spend linked to the program pending review. Suspend gate authority on this incident pending audit. Preserve all logs and recordings. The words do not punch. They close a circuit. Procurement confirms hold placed. Legal confirmation evidence preserved. The budget number is no longer theoretical. It is ice in a pipe. There is no victory face. He simply pockets the phone and waits. The story is not a brawl. It is a record. 8 minutes from first chime to full stop. The seat tag that started this slips into a clear pouch for chain of custody. The passenger in 2A pretends to sleep. The agent at the door studies a spot on the carpet that does not exist. Here is the promise to the viewer. We will show the receipts, gate scans, seat history, PA transcript, CCTV timestamps, not to humiliate individuals, but to map how a process bent under bias and how a standard bends it back. Quiet power is not loud, it is accurate. And in this cabin, accuracy is about to reset the room. 7:49 a.m. The pause stretches, jetway, hum, cabin air, the rustle of safety cards. Then the script snaps back like a rubber band. Sir, you are obstructing boarding. Final offer, main cabin or deplane. The sentence is clean, almost gentle, but it lands on top of a paper trail that already contradicts it. The black CEO doesn't look up. He notes the time. He reads the badge number without emphasis. He adds both to the note. From the cockpit, a chime. The captain asks for status to keep the push time alive. The gate replies with language that sounds official to people who don't read logs. Passenger dispute. Seating clarification. No mention of the manual override or the printed tag. The words push air, not fax. Row 3 becomes a mirror. Phones tilt toward the aisle as if the lenses can breathe. A man in 3C clears his throat and says, for the camera, that the seat was taken from the gentleman and given to someone else. He stays calm. He uses the word gentleman, not a descriptor, not an opinion. The cabin hears the choice and leans into it. The agent leans in, again, closer than policy allows, 2 fingers measuring the distance to his face. The pointing is soft, almost a tap, almost an invitation. It is also on camera. He does not flinch. He repeats the only line that matters. Log everything. It is not a threat. It is a request for accuracy. In ops, the dashboard refreshes. 2 new fields populate. Special service request printed at 7:38. Manual override by user ID GK 417 at 7:36. Legal timestamps the call and drops a boilerplate evidence preservation notice into the station inbox. The software throws a soft alarm to the station manager's tablet. Jamal, a junior supervisor, checks the notice, checks the gate cam, and stops walking midway down the concourse. He has enough time in the job to know which way this wins. The intercom opens. For security and comfort, we're asking all customers to refrain from filming. The line dies as quickly as it arrives. People glance up, then down, then keep recording. Jamal steps through the door and keeps his voice level. Did we print any seat notes tagged special cases? The agent says no, eyes still on the CEO. Jamal reaches for the printer tray and pulls out a second slip no one bothered to toss. The same phrase in the same font. He doesn't say a word, he just hands it to the camera in 3C, then to the CEO, then to his own pocket. The captain calls again. The wheels up window is closing. Ops answers for the station. Boarding hold for audit. The phrase is unusual enough that the cockpit says, copy twice. Procurement, still on the conference bridge, gets the nod they were waiting for. Freeze is active until review. Partner payments, uplift orders, crew meal enhancements linked to the program. The hold migrates through the system like frost along a pipe. No one on board can see the number, but they feel the temperature drop. The white passenger in 2 shifts under the weight of the room and asks if he did something wrong. No one answers him. The CEO doesn't look over. He is not here to punish a stranger. He is here to check a standard. He scrolls and reads back the sequence for the audio that is definitely being captured now. 2A confirmed at 6:19. Manual override by GK 417 at 7:36. Tag printed at 7:38. Reassignment explained as a security check without documentation. He ends with, "Thank you for noting the time." Security walks up in pairs. The belt buckles and radios always arrive with them. Jamal speaks first and speaks small. "We have evidence held with legal on the line. Please do not escalate until the manager of record arrives." It is a script line he has never used. It works. The officers park by the galley and watch. The agent at the door makes a final pass at control. She frames it as kindness. "Sir, let me get you to your destination and we'll email you later." He answers as if dictating minutes. Email after an audit is appropriate. Email instead of an audit is not. She blinks. The PA speaker above them gives one dry pop and stays quiet. Ops asks for a decision from the board representative. He gives it. Maintain the freeze. Swap the crew if necessary. The issue is not the time. The issue is the record. Jamal nods once, as if relieved that the sentence finally matched the moment. He looks to the camera in 3C and says, "On system," that the reassignment was manual and the note was printed. His voice does not rise. It lands. Passengers settle without being told. The vlogger mouth's got it like someone catching a glass before it breaks. In the window, a ground crewman gives a patient circle with his flashlight, the universal sign for wait. The cabin waits. The record thickens, the budget sits under ice, and the only heat in the room is the friction between what the policy says and what someone tried to make it do. 7:55 a.m. The jetway door is still open, which tells everyone the decision lives on the ground. The captain makes a measured announcement about a short delay and thanks customers for patience. It is the kind of line that keeps tempers from becoming part of the incident. The cabin goes quieter than the words deserve. Ops moves the call from a bridge to a named person. A director from corporate operations comes on, voice steady, already in the document. Legal stays present, speaking only to ask for exact times and user IDs. Procurement sits with the number and a notepad, tracking every dependency that will freeze with it. The machine is not angry. The machine is awake. Jamal steps into the aisle with the calm of someone who would like to stay employed. He introduces himself with name and title, then lays out the facts in the same order the CEO used. Seat 2, A confirmed at 0619, manual override 0736 by user GK417, tag printed 0738, no security note in the system before the switch. He adds that the special case wording is not a standard line for this airport. He has the printed slip and held it for chain of custody. He does not look at the agent when he says it. He looks forward, as if briefing a small room. The agent tries the word confusion and mentions a verbal alert that never made it into the record. Legal asks for the source and time and whether the alert was logged anywhere. The answer is not immediate. The delay answers the question better than words. The agent shifts weight and reaches for the radio, but Jamal has already written down the radio channel number after a glance. He reads it into the phone. Ops captures it. The CEO keeps his posture low-key. He is not narrating, and he is not a host. He is a participant who knows the difference between a dispute and an audit. When the ops director asks if he wants to proceed with budget hold, he does not pause. Maintain the freeze until a manager of record certifies the incident history. Ensure the certification is not handled by anyone on this flight's staffing chain. The language is dry enough to write a memo. A passenger in 1D breaks the spell by asking the man in 2A if he wants water. The man nods and whispers that he thought it was an upgrade. He does not say he was entitled. He does not say he knew. The small honesty lands in the room and opens a path. No one speaks to him again. The station manager finally arrives. He wears the look of someone who has been paged into a problem without the preamble that would make him a savior. Jamal gives him the slip, and the manager takes it with two hands as if it might be evidence or a blade. He greets the CEO by last name, not by sir. He has read the manifest. He has connected dots. The manager asks for 5 minutes to review cams and internal notes. Legal says 2 will do, and names exactly which angles to pull and which cue to check for PA scripts. The manager leaves and is back before the captain can try a second update. He confirms what the paper and the phone already know. The manual override was not authorized by security. The special case tag came from the gate printer and did not match any coded reason. The PA message used the word policy, but the policy cited is not the one that governs premium displacement. The agent begins to defend the decision as a judgment call. The manager gently interrupts and says, "Judgment is not a policy." He asks for the badge. He does not raise his tone. He collects the lanyard and clips it to his own belt temporarily. He states that the agent will be on a non-customer assignment pending review. Security hears the clarity and steps back a half step, which is how everyone knows escalation is no longer on the table. Ops asks the CEO if he wants the flight to continue with a crew swap or a reassignment of passengers. He answers that the flight should depart on time with him in the seat he purchased and the record preserved intact. He adds that the training implications belong to the next 30 days, not the next 30 minutes. The manager nods, repeats it into his radio, and gets a copy from the cockpit. The system now has the sentence twice. Jamal asks if he should read a short statement into the log for legal. The manager looks at the CEO, who gives the smallest nod. Jamal says the reassignment was manual without documentation, the tag was printed and displayed, and the passenger in 2A was seated as a result. He adds that when asked, the agent initially denied the print. He stops there. No editorial. Legal thanks him by name and notes that his statement is on record. You can feel the crew memorize that phrasing. The CEO finally stands. He doesn't address the cabin. He speaks only to the manager and the phone. He confirms that the freeze remains in place until post-incident certification and that any partner impacts will be communicated through procurement. He asks for the crew list and the station roster to be added to the evidence bundle, along with the printer job history. He thanks Jamal by name and says that he appreciates accuracy under pressure. Jamal's shoulders drop by a fraction, the only relief in the frame. The manager escorts the agent off the plane. The replacement agent steps in with a voice that sounds like training videos and relief combined. Boarding resumes in a way that does not feel like a victory lap. The captain gives a time certain and promises to make up minutes in the air. The phones gradually lower. The room warms by a degree. The budget does not. It will unfreeze when the standard is certified, not when feelings settle. The camera of the story returns to the seat tag in its clear pouch, the scrap that turned a small humiliation into a system check. The plane backs away from the gate. The promise to the viewer stands. This is not the peak. Proof is still coming. The verdict will be precise, and when it lands, it will change more than a seat. It will change who gets to call a decision policy. The aircraft levels at 10,000 feet, and the chime releases the cabin from the grip of takeoff. Screens glow. Thumbs move. The hush that rode up with the wheels doesn't break so much as thin out. A flight attendant brings water to 2A and 2B without eye contact. The man in 2 nods once and keeps his hands on the armrests like he is trying to disappear politely. The black CEO opens the laptop with the care of someone tagging evidence, not checking email. In-flight Wi-Fi logs him into the company network. The operations director is still on, moved to a secure line. Legal is present with a case number and a timestamp thread, now running down the right side like mile markers. Procurement adds a short list of vendors touched by the freeze and marks each with a hold code. The number 120 million is no longer a headline in a pitch deck. It is a parameter inside a system that obeys it. A push notification lands from the station manager. Jetway camera angles 1 and 2 secured. Podium cam downloaded. Printer job history exported with a checksum. The phrase special case appears in the print queue at 7:38 with the user ID embedded. Legal drops in 2 policy references by their numbers, the polite way to say that the words announced over the PA were not the governing ones. The director asks if he wants to attach the audio. He says yes. The policy was cited in public. Policy will be corrected in public. Row 3 compares notes without speaking. The man in 3 C-types with his elbows tucked in and then lowers his phone. He is done gathering and ready to be a witness if asked. The CEO does not recruit him. He does not need to. The record will carry the weight, and the crowd will carry the context if necessary. That is how standards grow teeth without theatrics. An internal message pings the station manager to brief the regional leader. The manager asks for wording. The CEO gives it to him in 13 calm words suitable for a slide. Manual reassignment without documentation. Printed note displayed. Evidence preserved. Budget frozen pending certification. The manager reads it back, grateful for sentences that don't leak. The cabin service lead stops by 2B. She keeps her voice even and owns the room for a beat. I am sorry for the experience. We will follow the record. He thanks her for speaking plainly and asks her to add the exact service names to the evidence list because line items teach better than slogans. She nods once and writes down the codes the way crew do when they want to keep a job instead of keeping a mood. The director suggests sending an acknowledgement to the customers on board, not a template, a note that tells them what actually happened without an empty apology. He agrees and drafts 3 lines that take responsibility for the delay and promise a transparent review. He resists the urge to over-explain. The difference between hard truth and soft spin is measured in syllables. Legal asks if he wants his title attached to the case notes. He waits a breath and then says, attach the board roll to the certification request and leave it off the public note. This is not a revealing stunt. It is a calibration. He will be named when the standard needs weight, not when a room wants revenge. Another push lands. Jamal has uploaded a short statement on record and it reads, clean. It notes the manual override, the printed slip, the initial denial, and the recovery of the slip. No speculation. No adjectives. The CEO flags the line and marks it for aftercare. Not a tip, a track. The system should remember who held the line when it bowed. At cruising altitude, the captain gives an honest update. A process issue, delayed departure. It is under review. We will make up time where possible. Thank you. The cabin exhales. The man in 2 whispers to no one in particular that he did not ask for anyone's seat. The CEO answers without turning his head that no one is accusing him. He adds, thank you for staying calm. The line matters because it doesn't attempt to redirect blame. It just keeps the lens on the place where policy lives. The director asks for final instructions before handing the case to the compliance team's day lead. He gives 3. Maintain the freeze until certification by a manager not attached to the station. Schedule a targeted recertification module for this airport with PA, scripting, and displacement policy. Notify partner leadership that payments are on hold pending the same certification. He finishes with the same 2 words that started the turn. Log everything. The laptop closes. The cabin is fed, the lights dim, and the sky turns the windows into small blank screens. In an hour, the plane will descend. On the ground, a chain of emails and dashboards will already be reshaping a workflow that was too easy to bend. He does not savor it. He watches the wing against the pale morning and rehearses the end of the story in his head. Proof, verdict, repair. Quiet power does not wait to be cheered. It waits for the standard to click back into place. Touchdown at 9:18 a.m. The rollout is smooth. The reverse thrust low, the mood still held together by the kind of politeness people use in elevators. At the gate, the taxi light snaps off and the seatbelt sign frees the aisle. No one stands. They wait for the captain's words. He thanks everyone for patience and says local staff will assist. It is the neutral phrasing that tells you the real conversation is not over. The door opens to a small receiving line that doesn't try to look casual. Station manager, regional leader on a tablet, a compliance rep with a slim folder. Jamal is there, not out front, but close enough for the details to find him. The agent from boarding is absent. That absence speaks more clearly than an announcement. The CEO stays seated until the forward galley clears. He rises without hurry, gives the man in 2A a nod, and steps into the jetway with the laptop under one arm and the clear pouch holding the slip in his other hand. The station manager greets him by name and asks for a quiet room. He asks for a room with a printer, a clock on the wall, and a glass panel. Not privacy, transparency. They settle in a small conference space off the concourse. The regional leader appears on video. Legal joins with the case file open. The time ladder runs down the side like track marks. Procurement keeps the freeze tag active. The manager provides coffee, then moves it aside when no one touches it. The CEO lays the slip on the table. He does not speak first. He lets the record open the meeting. Legal recites the sequence in plain language. Confirmation at 0619. Override at 0736 by user ID GK417. Slip printed at 0738 with the phrase, that is not part of any approved script. PA wording did not match the policy index for premium displacement. The compliance rep adds the camera angles and the length of each clip. Jamal's statement is read verbatim. It still lands clean. The regional leader asks for the ask. The CEO gives it like minutes Maintain a freeze on the program until a manager of record outside this station certifies the incident history. Remove gate authority for any staff who touch the override until recertification. Publish a corrected PA script to all stations by the end of the week. Notify partner leadership that payments are paused and that the review is procedural, not punitive. He looks at the clock once and returns to the notes. The station manager agrees to the first three without hesitation. He hesitates on the last until procurement spells out the scope. Partner payments linked to the program will hold. Uplift, catering, training enhancements, discretionary service trials. The number travels around the table without argument. The room accepts that consequences are not expressions of anger. They are a message to the system about weight and balance. The agent is brought in with a union rep. The door stays open. The CEO does not address her. He addresses the record. He asks what policy she believes she was executing and who instructed her to print the tag. She starts with confusion, then mentions a verbal directive. Legal asks for the time and source and whether it was logged. The answer is a pause, then a name, then a time that does not line up. The regional leader asks for the badge. It comes off quietly. She is assigned to off-floor work until review. No one raises a voice. The union rep writes down every word and says thank you for the open door. The manager of record for a neighboring station walks in. A neutral party. He reads the packet, the statement, the timestamps, the printer log. He takes 10 minutes and asks 3 questions. Were any other passengers displaced? Was security consulted on record? Was the phrase special case ever used in training? The answers are 1 no, 1 no, and 1 never. He signs the certification that the incident history is accurate and that the displacement did not follow policy. The CEO asks that the certification be attached to the flight log and the customer communications. He drafts 2 lines for passengers who were delayed and signs only with his role, not his name. He is not the story. The standard is, he turns to Jamal. He thanks him by name for preserving the slip and reading a clean statement. He asks HR and the manager to note this action for performance and to consider him for the next supervisory track. The manager agrees, not as a favor, but because the meeting itself has taught him what to reward. The regional leader asks if the freeze can lift now that certification is done. The CEO says, not yet. The system needs to absorb the lesson. Recertification must be posted, the corrected PA script must deploy, then the hold comes off. The room accepts the order of operations, legal logs the timeline to close the loop, procurement sets a provisional date, the number stays on ice, and no one argues with the cold. He stands, gathers the pouch, and returns it to the manager for chain of custody. On the way out, he pauses by the glass panel and watches the concourse move like water around a rock. He says the only line that has followed him through the day. Log everything. Then he walks back into the noise, leaving the room balanced the way an aircraft has to be to fly straight. The concourse gives way to a glassed conference room 3 floors up from baggage claim, the kind that doubles as a training space when the projector works. IT has the projector working. Legal has the case file on screen with timestamps stepped like a ladder. Ops, procurement, HR, and the regional leader are seated. The station manager stands to one side with a notepad. Jamal takes a back chair and opens his tablet, not to perform, but to remember. The CEO sits at the end of the table and asks for the first slide to be the policy index, not the incident. This is not about a person. This is about the rule. He speaks in a cadence that fits into meeting minutes. Premium displacement requires a documented operational need or a security instruction on record. Neither existed. A manual override occurred. A tag that is not in the script was printed and displayed. The PA used the word policy without citing the governing one. The evidence bundle is complete. We will correct it in public because the error was public. Communications dials in to draft the note passengers will receive tonight. The CEO keeps it short and clean. We delayed your flight because our process failed a standard. We are correcting the process. He adds no euphemism. He adds a link that will go live with a summary of steps, not empty regret. The regional leader nods and asks for an internal version. He gives it in 3 lines that read like a checklist. Manual reassignment without doc. Printed note displayed. Evidence preserved. He leaves space under each line for the fixes. Procurement briefs the group on the scope of the freeze. It touches uplift schedules, galley services, training enhancements, and discretionary service trials across 3 hubs. The number does not need to be repeated to be felt. Vendor Relations asks if messaging should go out now or after recertification posts. He answers now with the words pending certification and date certain. Clarity keeps relationships intact. Vendors can manage a pause. They cannot manage mystery. Compliance proposes a targeted recertification module. PA scripting with examples of compliant language. Displacement policy with decision trees. A 10-minute video with pauses and on-screen prompts that force the learner to choose and see why. The CEO asks for 2 additions. First, a live screen capture of the exact steps to check for a security instruction on record. Second, a clip showing how to refuse a verbal directive that conflicts with policy. He does not mention any names. He mentions outcomes. Staff need tools to say no without becoming the story. HR asks about the agent. The union rep is present and steady. The CEO does not call for punishment. He calls for process. Remove gate authority pending recertification. Assign to off-floor work until the module is complete. Require a review with a manager not attached to this station. He pauses, then adds a sentence that makes accountability functional. If the decision was instructed, the instruction will be examined first. The union rep writes it down word for word and thanks him. Data pulls a rapid check on displacement patterns at this station for the past quarter. The chart comes up with colors nobody argues with. The CEO asks for an audit window of 6 months and to include 2 neighboring stations for context. He wants anomalies marked and footnoted with operational reasons where valid, flagged where not. He is patient with the numbers because numbers are the way the lesson scales beyond this room. The regional leader moves to the part where most meetings stall. Who owns the fix? Names go on a table next to dates. The station manager owns the deployment of the corrected PA script by the end of the week. Compliance owns the recertification content by midweek. HR owns the removal and restoration of gate authority on completion. Procurement owns vendor notifications by close of business. Communications owns the passenger note and the public summary by tonight. Legal owns the evidence archive. Jamal's name appears only once, next to a small box that reads witness statements retained and chain of custody maintained. The CEO lets that sit. Recognition does not have to be loud to be real. Only then does he allow the reveal that adds weight, not drama. For the certification request, attach my board roll in the signature block. For everything else, keep titles minimal. This is not a personal brand exercise. It is a standard check. He looks down the table and says the sentence that closes the loop every time. Finish it on, system. As hands move, the projector flips to the live dashboard. A green bar runs next to evidence preserved. A yellow bar sits by certified incident history, awaiting upload from the neutral manager. A gray bar marks PA script update in progress. The freeze remains blue and solid. The room can see the plan breathing. The station manager asks if he can address staff in the break room after this meeting. The CEO says yes and gives him the only script that matters. State the facts, state the fix. Thank the people who held the line. The manager nods like someone who has been handed a map. In the hall, the CEO catches Jamal before the elevator. He thanks him again, not for loyalty, but for accuracy under pressure. He tells HR to flag his record for the next supervisory track intake and to assign him as an on-site truth keeper for the recertification rollout. Jamal says he was just doing his job. The CEO answers that is exactly what the standard needs. He walks back towards security with the lightest bag in the room and the heaviest decision already made. The budget stays on ice until the teaching is live and verifiable. The announcement to customers goes out. The vendor notes go out. The internal slide lands in inboxes with 3 lines and 3 fixes. He does not need to watch the comments. The work is not in the comments. It is in the next boarding call that uses the right policy without a pause. Terminate what failed, freeze what must be reviewed, log what was done, and then fly the standard forward. The break room is a rectangle of tile, a microwave that ticks, and a projector that throws everything a little too bright. Staff filter in from counters and jetways, still wearing the mourning. The station manager stands at the front with a printed script he doesn't use. He starts with the facts, then steps aside. The CEO asks IT to mirror the live dashboard. Evidence preserved glows green. Certified incident history flips from pending to complete as the neutral manager's upload lands. A bar labeled PA script update moves from gray to yellow. The room is quiet in the useful way. The CEO keeps the lens on the rule, not the person. He reads the policy that governs premium displacement, then the line that was used over the intercom. He does not assign adjectives to either. He asks compliance to play a clip of the PA from the flight, then a clip of the correct wording. The difference is small enough to miss in a rush and large enough to change outcomes. A few heads nod because they can feel where their own habits might have drifted. Phones buzz in pockets. A push has gone out to all stations. The corrected script is live with a short explainer and a one-tap acknowledgement that requires an employee ID. On the projector, acknowledgements start lining up as tiny check marks by city code. The system shows who has seen it without shaming who has not. The CEO tells the room that the audit window will look for patterns, not villains, and that the fix will be measured in accuracy, not apologies. Communications joins the speaker to preview the customer note. The words are short enough to fit on a screen without scrolling. We delayed departure because our process failed a standard. We are correcting the process. A link opens a page with a timeline, a policy reference, and the certification that now sits in the evidence bundle. The room doesn't cheer. It registers that someone decided to tell the truth without adornment. That is its own kind of relief. The station manager takes the mic for a single minute. He says the slip with the phrase "everyone saw" is in chain of custody. He says a manual override happened without security instruction on record. He says a neutral manager certified the history. He thanks Jamal by name for preserving evidence and reading a clean statement. Jamal tries to retreat into his chair. It doesn't work. The room claps once. Short and practical, the way crews do when a landing is smooth in crosswind. IT switches to the printer menu history. A list of favorites appears, some standard, one not. It is the phrase in question, saved as a custom quick print nearly 2 months ago. There is no mystery in the metadata. It shows the creator's user ID and the last 3 print times. No one breathes for a second, not out of shock, but because truth always takes up a little more space than a rumor. Legal notes the discovery and asks that the custom entry be removed and locked at the system level. The CEO adds that all custom quick prints will be audited and any non-standard phrasing scrubbed. That is how a local habit becomes a corporate fix without a town square. The union rep, who has been straight-backed and watchful, asks if this means the agent is ruined. The CEO answers that it means the process is clearer than it was an hour ago. Gate authority remains removed pending recertification. Off-floor work continues. If a supervisor instructed the action, the instruction is what will be examined first. The rep nods once because the order of operations matters. Outside the room, passengers from the morning flight start receiving the note. A vlogger in 3C posts a calm clip with captions, not a rant. The man in 2A gets a separate message that explains the review and makes clear he is not under blame. The camera does not need a villain to hold attention, it needs a standard to aim at. The CEO has learned that the hard way, and the room senses it. Procurement outlines the freeze's practical effects for this station over the next few days. Fewer discretionary upgrades to service, no pilot trials for new amenities, vendor invoices held but visible in the portal with a pending certification tag. The number behind it isn't spoken. It doesn't have to be. Everyone in the room understands that budgets move culture faster than slogans. The freeze stays. It is not punishment. It is leverage for a better habit. The PA script bar on the projector turns green. A new push lands. Recertification module assigned, due in 7 days, with a live screen capture of how to check for a security instruction on record and a clip on how to refuse a conflicting verbal directive. The CEO asks the manager to schedule supervised practice reads of the script at shift change for a week. He wants muscle memory, not memos. He closes with the smallest reveal the room will ever get from him. He states his board role for the program, not to flex, but to locate responsibility. He says the budget will unfreeze when certification is posted and the corrected script is deployed across the network, not before. He thanks the professionals in front of him for doing the slow work. He thanks Jamal again, this time for keeping the story inside the system instead of on the concourse. As the room empties, the intercom outside pops and plays a gate change 2 doors down. The sound is ordinary, almost boring. That is the point. In a week, the words it carries here will be the right ones by default. The agent who remains is not defeated. She is assigned a path back with clear steps. The supervisor who saved the wrong template is about to learn what it means to certify choices. The freeze holds, the logs grow, and the lesson leaves the projector to live where it matters, at the door to a plane that is about to board. By afternoon, the airport has the feel of a house after a storm. Nothing broken, everything damp. Procurement's notices hit vendor inboxes with timestamps and case numbers. A catering director calls the station manager first, then asks to be patched to the program lead. The CEO takes the line on speaker in the same glass room where the projector still hums. He explains the freeze without apology or theater. Payments are paused pending certification. Deliveries continue per schedule. Nothing will be retroactive. The director asks if they are implicated. He says they are not. This is a policy issue at the gate, not a service failure in the galley. The distinction matters because it limits damage and keeps partners steady. The call ends with a clear date and a promise to publish the fix. Relief is audible even through compression. Communications pushes the customer note. Phones vibrate across 2 time zones. The message lands as 3 sentences and a link. There is no brand voice syrup, only what happened and what is being done. A handful of replies ask for vouchers. The company will handle that on a separate track, but the note itself stays lean. The vlogger from row 3 posts a clip that is almost boring on purpose. He overlays the boarding times and the seat map like a weather report. It travels fast precisely because it refuses to be a spectacle. The algorithm catches steadiness the way a bank catches patterns. Data sends the first pass on displacement behavior across nearby stations. The bars are thin, the colors quiet, the outliers few but real. 2 stations show a higher rate of premium moves flagged as operational without supporting notes. The CEO asks that their managers receive the same module and the same live practice on the PA script this week, not next. The point is not shame. The point is to keep the correction moving like a front line across a map. HR texts that the agent has started off-floor work and is booked into the module. The union rep confirms the timeline and asks again about the path back. He gets the same answer he got in the break room. Recertification, supervision, monitored shifts, restored authority. No shortcuts. Jamal receives a temporary assignment as an on-site truth keeper for the rollout. He does not get a trophy, he gets a schedule. He takes it because people who treat accuracy as oxygen don't need confetti. They need a lane. A national desk calls for comment. Comms answers with the prepared lines and offers the policy index rather than a quote. The outlet accepts the document because documents are harder to argue with than adjectives. The CEO is not booked for TV. The face of the fix is a PDF and a training clip. That decision sets the tone for the week and quietly cuts the oxygen to anyone who wants an argument. Late in the day, the neutral manager certification is live on the dashboard. Evidence preserved is green. Certified incident history is green. PA script update is green for this station and moving across others. The freeze remains blue. The only gray bar left reads recertification completion. The CEO watches it briefly and closes the screen. The work is underway, which is the only acceptable status for a system that bent under pressure. He walks the concourse once. Not as an inspection, just a calibration. At one gate, a new agent reads the corrected script over the PA with a cadence that sounds like she practiced it in front of a wall. He smiles without showing it and keeps moving. In a corner, a family argues gently about a connection. A supervisor moves them to the front of a line and calls it by the book. Small choices stack. This is how culture shifts. Not with slogans, but with sentences that hold. A board member calls between meetings and asks for the short of it. He gives the short. Premium displacement was mishandled. A non-standard tag was printed and displayed. Evidence preserved. Neutral manager certified. Recertification rolling. Budget frozen pending completion. He does not dress it up. She thanks him and asks if he wants to lift the hold once acknowledgements hit 100%. He says not acknowledgements, completions. The difference is the entire reason we are here. She laughs once, the weary kind, and says approved. As the sun angles into the terminal, the station manager returns with a small stack of printed schedules for the practice reads. He looks different in the way people do after a day of telling the truth out loud. He asks if the CEO will join the first session tomorrow. The answer is yes, for 5 minutes to set the tone and then get out of the way. Power does not have to occupy the room to anchor it. The day closes with a single email to the wider program list. It includes the timeline, the addendum to the policy, and the clip that teaches a refusal built on rule rather than rank. It names no one. It measures only what can be measured. It ends with a line that has already done more work than any speech could. Log everything. Somewhere 2 gates down, the intercom pops, and a young agent reads the corrected words without thinking. That is the future the freeze is buying, one announcement at a time. The budget will thaw when the habit is muscle, not memory. Until then, the cold stays on purpose. Morning returns with the kind of light that makes people reset. The station opens its day with the practice read in the empty gate area. 10 agents line up facing chairs that stand in for passengers. The manager runs the corrected script once at full volume, then again at half, then asks each agent to take a turn. The cadence improves. The pauses fall in the right places. Jamal stands at the side with a clipboard, not grading, just ticking off completions and catching small slips before they harden into habits. Compliance flips the recertification module live for the region at 9. The first screens are simple by design. Where do you check for a security instruction on record? What do you do if a verbal directive conflicts with written policy? The clip shows a refusal that is clean and polite. The quiz forces choices, not guesses. By noon, completion bars move in blocks instead of single marks. The difference between acknowledgement and completion becomes visible on the dashboard, and the room understands why the hold remains. A separate team scrubs printer menus across the network. Custom quick prints are locked at the system level. Anything outside the policy index is removed and archived. They find 3 variations of the same non-standard phrasing in other stations, all created months ago when someone thought a shortcut would save time. Legal tags each and closes the loophole with a line of code and a memo that will age better than a warning. Data publishes a short readout not meant for press. 2 stations show patterns that need coaching, not discipline. One shows a spike that needs an audit. The CEO asks for a call with that manager and starts it with the same 4 sentences he has used all week. This is a standard check. We are looking for patterns, not villains. The evidence will carry the weight. Your name is here because your operation owns a fix, not a headline. The manager breathes into that space and agrees to mirror the training plan by afternoon. Vendors adjust without drama. A galley partner moves a test menu to next month. A linen supplier asks if deliveries should shift. Procurement says keep them. Invoice shows pending certification and date certain. The temperature of the conversation stays even. The freeze is doing the job it was asked to do, apply pressure without breaking lines. Communications posts the public summary promised in the customer note. It is a single page with 4 blocks. Timeline, policy reference, certification by a neutral manager, steps taken. There are no adjectives. There are links. The comments are mixed in the way public comments always are, but the ones that matter, read it and move on. The algorithm that loves heat shrugs at steadiness, and that is fine. This is not content. This is conduct. In the early afternoon, HR sits with the agent for a recorded review. The union rep is there. The questions are granular. What policy did you believe governed the action? What source gave you the verbal directive? Why was no record created? The answers are halting, then clearer. A supervisor had a habit of flagging certain passengers as special cases when schedules tightened. The habit became a shortcut. The shortcut became a custom print. The custom print became the paper everyone saw. HR notes the chain not to assign drama, but to assign steps. The badge stays off. The path back remains open if the steps are taken. The board's audit committee holds a short call. The CEO briefs in 8 sentences and ends with the one that makes them listen harder. The program will not thaw on acknowledgements. It will thaw on completions, the corrected script in full deployment, and a week of spot checks without variance. They approve the criteria and ask for a date certain. If the target's hit, he gives them one next Friday at close. The number finally has a path out of the ice that is measured, not felt. At 4, Jamal walks the jetway with a small cart of headsets and a sign that reads, "Practice reads." He sets up at an unused gate and runs pairs through the script while actual flights board 2 doors down. He catches a mispronounced policy number here, an unhelpful phrase there. He corrects gently and keeps moving. The work looks small from the mezzanine. It is not small. A note hits the dashboard. Recertification completion for this station is above 90%. The last few are on a late shift and signed up for the next hour. The PA script status is solid green across the neighboring stations and half the region. The only bar that still holds blue is the freeze. The CEO watches the colors for a moment and closes the screen. Numbers will finish the argument for him. He steps onto the concourse and passes a family reading a connection screen, a pilot giving directions, a janitor rerouting a wet floor sign so it helps rather than blocks. Small right choices stack. The plane from the morning story pushes back on time under a sky that has decided to behave. He does not chase the flight with a statement. He walks toward the exit with a simple plan for tomorrow. Start with the stations showing drift. End with the ones that got it right and ask them to teach. The verdict is coming, but it will not be an announcement. It will be a system that makes the right sentence the easy one to say. The morning after, the airport moves like muscle memory. The dashboard opens with bars that finally look like a plan instead of a plea. Recertification at this station ticks to 100% by 8:10 a.m. Neighboring stations follow within the hour. The corrected PA script has gone green across the region. The sample audio from random gates sounds uniform, not robotic trained, not timid. Only one bar stays blue, the freeze. It waits for spot checks to clear. Compliance schedules unannounced rides along for the day. 2 auditors take seats by the podiums with headsets that split the PA feed. They aren't there to trap anyone. They are there to confirm that training lands in the air, not just on a quiz. The phrases that used to wobble now hold. When a delay pops, the agent uses the exact index number and the same calm cadence the room practiced yesterday. The auditor's stylus hits the screen with a small nod you can hear. HR finishes the longer conversation with the agent. The record now includes the supervisor who normalized the shortcut. That supervisor sits in a small office with legal, face even, voice low. The questions are the same ones asked all week, and they land in the same order. When did this practice begin? Who else used it? Why was it never entered into policy review? The answers show habit, not conspiracy, and that difference matters because it points to a fix. The result is precise. Removal of gate authority until recertification, corrective coaching, performance plan attached to a manager who forgot that speed without rule is just luck. Midday, the internal page that tracked the incident adds a new module at the top. Lessons learned. It reads like a field manual entry. Manual reassignment requires documentation on record. Custom printer menus are locked to approve phrases. PA scripts must cite policy numbers when they guide displacement. The page is not a victory lap. It is a receipt the staff can carry back to their next shift. The regional leader asks for a short call to decide the thaw. The board member dials in from a conference room that looks like it was designed to keep voices level. Procurement has a chart that shows vendor payments stacked by due date with a tag for those paused. Operations shows spot check clips from 3 airports, each one a clean read. Compliance shows the recert completion board. Legal has the certification and a draft closure note that names the fix, not the people. The CEO watches the grid of boxes and the small moving lights under each metric. He speaks the criteria out loud one more time, the way pilots read checklists even when they know them by heart. Completions, not acknowledgements. Corrected script deployed network-wide. Spot checks without variance, neutral certification attached, aftercare in place for the staff who held the line. The boxes light in order as each owner answers yes. The only pause comes at aftercare. HR confirms Jamal's temporary assignment becomes a formal step toward a supervisory role, with training, credit, and a name in the program log. The line lands like a seatbelt click. The board member asks for the recommendation. The CEO gives it in 12 words. Thaw the budget on close of day with monitoring for 1 week. He adds the practical guardrails, an automated alert if any station uses non-standard phrasing, and a nightly digest of PA samples during the monitoring period. No one argues with the detail because detail is why this call exists. Before the call ends, communications drops in the public line that will go out with the thaw. We paused spending to correct a process. The correction is complete. Monitoring continues for 1 week. No adjectives, no self-congratulation. A link to the policy index and the neutral certification sits under the sentence, like ballast. Afternoon brings the last round of spot checks. An agent at a smaller station gets tangled on the first take and catches herself without help, starts over with the right words, and keeps going. The auditor marks it as a correction, not a miss. The standard is not perfection on the first breath, it is accuracy on the second. In the quiet between flights, the CEO walks past the gate where all of this started. The carpet looks the same, the printer now shows a menu that can't be edited locally, the quick print list is clean, a new agent reads an upgrade invite with care, then turns to help a parent with a stroller without turning it into a scene. Ordinary is back in fashion. He finds Jamal near a bank of monitors, eyes on a map that renders the operation as a field of green, yellow, and the occasional red. Jamal doesn't see him at first. He's busy logging a practice session that just wrapped. When he looks up, the CEO keeps it simple. You held the standard when the room bent. The system will remember that. Jamal nods in the way people do when they have been given responsibility instead of applause. At 5 p.m., Procurement flips the tag on the dashboard. The blue bar drains like ice under a warm blade. Payments move to processing with notes that cite the case number and the certification. Vendor portals update with timestamps and the phrase thawed after completion. No confetti, just cash flow. The call that started it all is saved to the case file. The slip that turned humiliation into evidence sits in an archive with a chain of custody log. The agent is on a path with steps she can see. The supervisor is on a plan with dates that mean something. The station manager has a new habit of reading scripts out loud at shift change. The region has a week of monitoring that will quietly make the next month easier. As the terminal dims to evening, the intercom pops with a gate change nearby. The corrected words land without effort. The room does not know a budget just thawed. It does not need to. The point was never to make a headline. The point was to make a sentence true in public and keep it that way. He pockets his phone and steps into the flow of people moving toward whatever comes next, leaving behind a record that can stand on its own. The week closes in a room built for decisions, not drama. No stage, just a long table, a wall screen, and a clock that refuses to blink. The dashboard opens to a grid of green. Recertification completes across the network. Spot checks logged without variance. PA samples archived with timestamps. The thaw holds. Under it, a small stack of lessons learned sits like ballast-thin pages that weigh more than they look. Legal walks the board through the case file. 4 points, crisp. Manual reassignment without documentation. Non-standard tag printed and displayed. Neutral certification attached. Corrective actions deployed. There is nothing left to argue because the facts got there first. The board member who asked for completions, not acknowledgements, nods at the screen. She knows why that line mattered. The CEO keeps the camera off himself. He keeps it on the system. He reads the verdict as policy, not vengeance. 3 directives. Same cadence as the day it turned. Terminate the custom print path network-wide. Only policy-indexed phrases remain. Freeze any budget automatically if a non-standard displacement field appears. Thaw only after certification. Log every PA related to displacement with policy number and user ID attached. The words are not new, they are now permanent. He closes each with a date. Today, today, today. Communications puts up the public summary. 1 page, 4 blocks. Timeline, policy reference, neutral certification, steps. A link to the training module appears at the bottom for anyone who wants to see what the staff saw. No names, no gloating. The board approves release. The published light on the console glows and then goes steady. Aftercare lands next. HR reads the path back for the agent like a checklist. Recertification complete. Supervised shifts. monitored compliance, gate authority restored after 30 days without variance. The supervisor who built the shortcut gets a corrective plan with dates and a shadow audit of his station for the next quarter. This isn't mercy and it isn't spectacle. It's the shape of accountability when you expect people to improve, not perform regret. The station manager joins us by video from a spare office. Behind him, a whiteboard shows shift times and a small handwritten line. State the facts, state the fix, thank the people who held the line. He reports clean reads at shift change, zero drift, a crew that now treats the script like a tool instead of a scold. He does not ask for credit. He reports a habit. Jamal is called in for a minute that will outlast the meeting. The regional leader reads a notice. Temporary assignment converted into a formal step on the supervisory track, with training, credit, and truth keeper duties attached to recert rollouts. The room doesn't clap. It logs the change. Jamal says thank you and stands back the way people do when someone finally names the work they've actually been doing. Data flips to a slide titled Early Indicators. Customer satisfaction, onboarding fairness nudges up. Time to seat returns to baseline. Variance and premium displacement drops to noise. No parade, just numbers that behave. Procurement notes that vendor relationships stayed warm through the freeze because dates were clear and the fix was public. Invoices move again with the case number attached, proof that money can carry memory. A civil rights quality of service group dials in, not for a headline, for a partnership. They'll review the module, add a section on bias recognition rooted in procedure, not feelings. The CEO agrees and asks that the clip on refusing conflicting verbal directives be the first thing their trainers evaluate. He doesn't need a quote, he needs a sharper tool. Before adjournment, the board member asks the only open question that matters. What keeps this from sliding back when the room forgets today? The CEO answers without flourishing. The lock-on printer menus, the automated freeze trigger, the PA log with policy numbers, the habit of practice reads, the neutral certification requirement. And one more line we will keep teaching until it feels ordinary. Log everything. Systems drift, logs bring them home. The meeting ends with a small ritual that looks like nothing and changes everything. The CEO signs the policy addendum with his board title attached and slides the pen to compliance. The signature isn't a trophy. It's a promise to the next person who has to stand in an aisle and choose between speed and standard. The addendum moves to the archive, the place where quiet power lives when the room is empty. Downstairs, a gate chime pops and carries a corrected announcement across a dozen ears that won't remember it. That's the point. The best version of this story is the one that disappears into routine. The agent on a plan has steps to climb. The supervisor with the shortcut has dates to meet. The station manager has a script he can defend in daylight. Jamal has a lane. Vendors have clarity. Customers have transparency instead of a refund code with flowers around it. The camera of the story rests on the clear pouch in the archive for a beat the printed slip that turned humiliation into a hinge. Then it pulls back to show what replaced it. A menu that cannot break the rule, a log that won't let memory pretend, and a team that learned to make the right sentence the easy one to say. The verdict was never about a seat. It was about who gets to call a decision policy, and the answer now lives on system, where it belongs. 30 days out, the incident is no longer a conversation at the gate. It is a set of changes you can point to without raising your voice. The policy addendum sits in the operations portal with a date stamp and a short preface that reads like a promise rather than a press line. Training shows as complete for the station, the neighboring hubs, and the two outliers flagged by data. The corrected PA script has become a cadence agents use without thinking. It is not a slogan, it is a tool. Procurement circulates a vendor memo that explains the freeze, the thaw, and the guardrails that now travel with this program. The cases that were paused are paid with a line that cites certification. Vendor portals reflect the same language. A catering lead writes back to say the clarity helped her manage labor and deliveries during the hold. That one sentence is the difference between pressure and damage. Pressure teaches, damage lingers. Compliance posts the first roll-up of early indicators. Premium displacement variance falls into the low single digits across the region. Time to sit returns to baseline with less noise. Customer comments reference the corrected announcements by number in a way that suggests people are hearing policy as structure, not as a shield. The dashboard does not celebrate, it reports. HR updates the paths that were opened on day one. The agent who printed the tag passes recertification and begins supervised shifts off the floor, then rotates back to the podium under monitoring. The steps are visible and finite. There is no guesswork, which means there is less fear and less spin. The supervisor who normalized the shortcut completes corrective coaching and sits through a shadow audit of his station. His reports are quieter and cleaner. He does not need to be shamed to improve. He needs dates and checks. Jamal's temporary assignment becomes a rung that holds weight. He co-hosts practice, reads for new hires, and sits with compliance to record a 2-minute segment on chain of custody for physical evidence. The clip is dry by design and is watched because crews prefer instructions that work over speeches that glow. His name appears under the module as contributor. That is not decoration. It is a signal to anyone who thinks accuracy is invisible. Communications and the Civil Rights Quality of Service partner release a joint note that links to the training clip on refusing a conflicting verbal directive. It is framed in procedure, not emotion. A few stations write back to ask if they can borrow the refusal wording for non-boarding contexts. The answer is yes. Standards that travel are worth the work. Legal closes the case file with a final page that is the opposite of drama. It catalogs what the system now prevents. Printer menus cannot spawn custom phrases without a policy ticket. Non-standard displacement entries trip an automatic freeze and route to a neutral reviewer. PA lines logged with user IDs make it impossible to hide a decision inside an announcement. The archive stores the slip that started this story and sits next to a screenshot of a clean menu. One artifact of failure. One artifact of repair. At 60 days, operations broadens the audit window to include 2 more regions. The findings are not exciting, which is the point. Drift is caught early. Decisions cite numbers instead of impressions. 2 tiny flare-ups are addressed with the same path back used here. No new freezes are required because the automated tripwire did the work before a human had to step in. Customer satisfaction on boarding fairness lifts by a notch that would be easy to miss if you were not looking for it. A second notch appears the following month. The movement is not a campaign. It is a habit taking root. Procurement notes that vendors are already referencing the certification line in their own documentation, a sign that the lesson has walked into other rooms and kept its shape. The board asks for a short review at the quarter close. The CEO presents 5 sentences. The displacement policy is now locked to documented needs. The script update is deployed and practiced. The freeze protocol is automated, with neutral certification required for thaw. Metrics moved in the right direction without a public argument. Aftercare tracked the people who held the line. He ends where he started. Log everything. Back at the station, the manager has taped a small card near the printer. It reads, states the facts, states the fix, and has 3 policy numbers in small print beneath. Agents practice reads at shift change without being asked. A new hire takes a turn and trips on a clause, starts over, and finds the rhythm the second time. Jamal checks the box on his sheet and moves to the next gate. He is not performing. He is keeping a standard alive. The man who sat in 2A that morning receives a final note with a public summary and a quiet apology that is specific to his part in the sequence. He writes back that he did not know how any of it worked and is glad the explanation exists. He does not ask for a coupon code. He does not need one. Truth did the job a voucher could not. The story could end here, and many would call it enough. But the work that matters more than the ending is what does not show up next time. A seat tag no one prints. A phrase no one says. A pause no one forces. Quiet power is not a mood. It is a record you can point to when the room forgets. The system now contains its own memory, which is the only kind that scales. 30 days became 60, and the incident turned from a headline into a handbook. The clear pouch with the printed slip lives in the archive beside a screenshot of a locked printer menu, a small museum of cause and consequence. The dashboard opens to calm colors now. Script updates hold. Recert completions stay high without emails. Spot checks happen, and nothing dramatic happens back. When systems remember for you, people have space to do the job. The board's addendum folds into the policy index as if it had always been there. Printer menus accept only approved phrases. Any non-standard displacement entry triggers an automatic budget hold and routes to a neutral review. Every PA tied to displacement logs, a policy number, and user ID, which means no one can hide a decision inside a microphone. The fix does not depend on a hero or a villain. It depends on locks, logs, and a steady habit of reading the script the same way every time. The station that made the turn keeps the turn. Practice reads at shift change sound normal now. The manager's card near the printer states the facts, stating the fix in handwriting that has been copied to 3 other break rooms. Jamal wears a small supervisor badge during rollouts and teaches chain of custody like a muscle memory drill. He never became a mascot, he became a standard bearer, which is better and lasts longer. Vendors move on schedule, invoices cite certification the way pilots cite checklists. A civil rights quality of service partner folds a bias recognition segment into the training video without adding heat. Refusing a conflicting verbal directive plays as a crisp procedural move instead of a moment of courage. Courage is unreliable. Procedure scales. Customer notes grow boring in a useful way. People mention hearing policy numbers and announcements and post their flights like weather reports. The algorithm, which feeds on outrage, yawns. That is a good sign. When a system makes the right sentence the easy one to say, storylines dry up and operations run. That was always the point. And the seat that started it. A different day, a different flight, a new passenger in 2A. The agent checks the system, cites the right line, offers the right help, and clears the aisle without setting off a chain of corrections. Nothing to film, nothing to defend later. A small victory is repeated until it is no longer called a victory. It is called work. The verdict of this series is the same 3-part cadence that turned the room. Terminate the pathways that let bias masquerade as processes. Freeze the spend when the record bends, then thaw only after certification. Log everything so truth travels faster than rumor. We did not chase a scene. We designed a standard. The difference shows up in the next morning's PA, not in last night's comments. If you were here for the spectacle, you might think the ending underwhelms. That is because the win is invisible on purpose. It lives in the printer menu you cannot edit, in the audit that fires before anyone has to raise a voice, in the steady voice that says the correct policy out loud and means it. Quiet power is not soft. It is specific, it does not argue, it records, routes, and reforms. To the team that held the line, the aftercare continues. To the people who drifted, the path back stays open and measured. To the customers, you will keep hearing the rules said plainly. To the partners, your invoices will carry the memory of what we fixed. To the next station that feels a shortcut tug at a busy hour, you already have a refusal that fits in your mouth. If this story helped you see how standards outwork speeches, share it with someone who runs a process that touches people. If you want more cases where receipts beat rhetoric, subscribe. New episodes show how quiet power resolves loud problems without leaving scars. Drop your own stories of policy, done right or wrong, in the comments. We read the ones that teach. And if you work frontline and want a copy of the refusal script, check the link in the description. The fix is free because the lesson is public. We will be back with the next audit, the next corridor where a soft habit hardened into harm, and the next design that turns it the right way. Until then, carry the only line you need when rooms get loud and records go missing. Log everything.